I've explored many forgotten places, but nothing has ever felt like this. These asylums in upstate New York aren't just ruins. They're time capsules of pain, fear, and memories that refuse to die. Every broken window, every echoing hallway feels alive, as if the people who once lived here never truly left. You can feel them watching, listening, waiting in the silence. What I'm about to tell you isn't a story. It's what I saw, what I felt, and what still keeps me awake at night. These are 5 terrifying abandoned asylums that prove some places never rest. If you love exploring real haunted places and terrifying true stories, make sure to subscribe and join me on this dark journey, because things are about to get even scarier. 1. Willard Asylum for the Chronic Insane, Ovid, New York. When I first walked through the gates of the Willard Asylum for the Chronic Insane, a cold wave of air brushed past me, sharp, heavy, and strangely alive. The sky was gray, and the silence around the abandoned buildings felt unnatural, like the whole place was holding its breath. The massive red brick structure loomed ahead, its broken windows reflecting the fading light. I had read about this asylum before, how thousands of people once lived and died here, but standing in front of it felt completely different. It was like the ground itself remembered the pain of those who had been forgotten. As I stepped inside, the wooden floor groaned beneath my feet. Dust hung in the air like fog, and the faint smell of rust and rot clung to every surface. My flashlight beam danced across peeling paint, old medical charts, and long, narrow hallways that seemed to stretch forever. The silence wasn't just quiet, it was thick, pressing against my ears, making even my breathing sound too loud. In one corner of the room, I found an old patient tagged on the floor. The name was barely readable, but it looked like Margaret, Ward C. I don't know why, but reading that name made my chest feel tight. I kept imagining her walking down these same halls, decades ago, lost and alone. As I explored deeper, the temperature suddenly dropped. My breath turned visible in the light. I tried to convince myself it was just air coming through broken windows, but something felt wrong. From the far end of the corridor came a soft, dragging sound, like someone's shoes scraping the floor. My flashlight flickered. The sound stopped. Then, after a few seconds, it came again, closer this time. I called out, thinking maybe another explorer was there, but no one answered. My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. When I turned the corner, the hallway was empty. But on the wall, in the beam of my light, I saw a faint handprint smeared in dust, small, like a child's. They trailed toward a half-open door leading into one of the old patient rooms. I pushed it open slowly, and the hinges screamed. Inside, a single rusted bed frame sat against the wall, and on the wall above it, someone had carved 3 words with something sharp. They never left. I froze. The air around me grew heavy, and for a moment, I could swear I heard faint whispering, like someone saying my name, but from far away. My camera started to glitch, the light flickering on and off. I stepped back, but before I could turn around, the door slammed shut behind me so hard that the echo rang through the whole building. My hands were shaking as I pushed it open again, and somehow, it moved easily, like it hadn't been stuck at all. When I finally stepped outside into the open air, the sound of the wind felt like a relief. I looked back at the asylum one last time, and in one of the top windows, I thought I saw a faint shadow move away from the glass. It could have been anything, a trick of the light, but deep down, I knew what I saw. The Willard Asylum wasn't empty. It was waiting. 2. Hudson River State Hospital, Poughkeepsie, New York. The first time I saw the Hudson River State Hospital, It was just after sunset. The sky was painted in deep orange and fading purple, and the giant Gothic towers of the asylum stood against it like dark, broken teeth. I parked my car near the rusted gate, and for a moment, I just sat there, staring at the structure. The wind carried the sound of creaking metal and dry leaves scraping across the cracked pavement. It felt like the building was alive, breathing slowly, waiting for me to come inside. As I stepped through the main archway, my flashlight beam sliced through years of dust and silence. The smell hit me first, a strange mix of mold, wet wood, and something sweet that made my stomach twist. The hospital had been closed for decades, but it still felt crowded, like the walls were holding on to every scream, every memory. I started recording on my camera. The red light blinked faintly, and somehow, that small light made me feel less alone. Walking down the main hall, I passed peeling murals and doors half torn off their hinges. I could still see faded words like therapy and Ward 7 painted above doorways. Every step echoed endlessly, bouncing off the high ceilings. At one point, I found an old wheelchair tipped over on its side, one wheel still slowly spinning from the breeze. I don't know why, but I bent down and touched it. It was freezing cold, colder than anything else around me. The further I went, the stranger it got. Somewhere above me, a faint thump echoed, like footsteps. I froze. It came again, slow and deliberate. I called out, but no one answered. I climbed the stairs, every wooden step groaning under my weight. When I reached the top floor, I felt the temperature drop sharply. My breath was visible now. The hallway was long and straight, lined with rooms on both sides. The doors were numbered, some missing, some still hanging. In the silence, I heard it, a woman's voice, humming softly. It was so faint I thought I imagined it. I followed the sound, and it led me to a room at the very end of the hall. The door was half open, swaying slightly. I pushed it with my hand, and the humming stopped instantly. My flashlight flickered once, then steadied. Inside, there was a single metal bed, and on the floor, an old patient file covered in dust. The name on the front said Eleanor M., Ward 3, 1957. I turned the file over, and a faded black and white photo slipped out, a woman in a hospital gown staring blankly at the camera. I looked at her face for a few seconds, and then I heard it again. The humming. But this time, it was right behind me. I spun around. No one was there. The air had gone completely still. My chest tightened. I could hear my heart pounding. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. A shadow, tall and thin, gliding past the doorway. My camera caught a flash of it, but the screen instantly glitched. Static and distortion filled it. I backed away, my hands shaking, trying to steady the light. As I ran back down the stairs, I could still hear the humming, fainter now, but following me, echoing through the corridors like it was coming from the walls themselves. When I finally reached the exit, I turned to look one last time. In one of the top windows, behind the shattered glass, I could see the outline of a woman standing perfectly still, watching me leave. That night, I played the recording on my camera. Everything was normal, except for one thing. Just before I turned to run, a soft voice whispered into the mic. "Eleanor's still here." 3. Utica State Hospital, New York State Lunatic Asylum, Utica, New York. I still remember the first night I entered the Utica State Hospital. The building stood in complete silence, covered in fog that curled around the broken gates like smoke. The moment I stepped out of the car, the air felt different, heavier, colder, like the place was holding its breath. I had seen this asylum in pictures, but standing there, it felt more like a wound than a building. The massive stone walls stretched into darkness, and the windows looked like empty eyes staring back at me. I pushed open the rusted front door, and the sound echoed through the entire hall. The smell of damp wood and something sour filled the air. My flashlight beam caught flakes of paint falling from the ceiling like ash. Every step I took seemed louder than it should have been. Somewhere deep inside, I could hear faint dripping water, steady and rhythmic. I told myself it was just a broken pipe, but it sounded too deliberate, too timed. As I walked through the old patient ward, I passed dozens of open rooms. Rusted beds, torn mattresses, old restraints hanging from the wall. It felt like time had stopped here, but the memories hadn't. I found a nameplate still fixed to a door, Dr. H. Wilcox. The office was filled with decaying folders and handwritten notes. One of them mentioned hydrotherapy and violent episodes. Reading it made my stomach twist. I could almost imagine the screams that once filled these halls. Then something strange happened. I heard a voice. It was soft, almost a whisper, like someone calling my name from down the corridor. I froze. The beam of my flashlight shook as I turned toward the sound. The hallway was empty, but I felt a sudden shift in the air, a cold wave passing right through me. I called out, my voice trembling. "Hello? Who's there?" Silence. For a few seconds, nothing moved. Then, at the very end of the hall, I saw a door slowly creak open on its own. I hesitated, but curiosity pulled me closer. The door led to a small room, bare walls, a single chair in the center, and on the floor, a faded patient tag with the name Joseph K. burned into it. I bent down to pick it up, and right then my flashlight died. Total darkness. I could feel my heart pounding, every beat echoing in my ears. The air turned icy, and I swear I heard breathing right behind me. Slow, deep, human breathing. My shaking hands fumbled for the flashlight, and when it finally flickered back on, the chair was no longer in the middle of the room. It was pressed up against the wall, like someone had pushed it there violently. I ran. My boots slammed against the floor, dust flying everywhere. As I turned a corner, I caught something in my peripheral vision, a tall figure standing in the doorway of the ward, completely still, head tilted slightly, just watching. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. When I looked back, the asylum was quiet again, lifeless, as if nothing had happened. But when I played back my recording later that night, right after my own voice saying, "Hello?" a faint whisper came through the static. It said, "Don't leave me here." 4. Willard Psychiatric Center, Collins, New York. It was already dark by the time I reached the Willard Psychiatric Center. The place stood hidden behind thick trees, its decaying towers barely visible through the fog. I parked my car on the side of the cracked road, the engine ticking softly in the silence. There was no wind, no sound, just an emptiness that felt unnatural. As I stepped out, the cold hit me like a wall. The air smelled of wet earth and rusted metal. In that moment, I realized how far I was from anything living. The asylum looked like it hadn't seen light in years. Broken windows stared down at me like hollow eyes. I walked toward the entrance, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The main doors were chained shut, but someone had already broken one of the side windows. I climbed through carefully, the glass crunching under my boots. Inside, it was colder, much colder. My breath came out in small clouds, and every sound seemed to echo forever. The corridor stretched endlessly, filled with old patient beds and smashed furniture. My flashlight picked up faded words on the wall. Ward C, restricted area. The silence was so complete that even my heartbeat felt loud. I tried to convince myself this was just another abandoned building, but deep down, it didn't feel empty. It felt watched. I stopped near an old treatment room. The metal bed inside was still bolted to the floor, leather straps hanging loose, covered in mold. On the wall beside it, there were scratch marks, hundreds of them, layered over each other. I ran my fingers across the wall. The grooves were deep, uneven, like someone had clawed through the paint with their bare hands. My flashlight flickered. For a second, I thought I saw movement in the corner of the room. A shadow, thin, hunched, gone as quickly as it appeared. The hallway ahead split into two. I decided to follow the left path, leading toward the old isolation wing. As I walked, I could hear something faint, the sound of metal scraping across the floor. It came from somewhere behind me, slow and dragging. I turned around fast, but the hallway was empty. My throat went dry. I started walking faster, my boots echoing louder, and that sound, it followed, matching my pace. Faster when I moved faster, slower when I stopped. I reached the end of the hall and pushed open a door that led into a narrow stairwell. The smell of decay was stronger there. Halfway down the stairs, I heard a whisper. It wasn't clear, more like a breath forming words. My flashlight beam shook as I looked around, and on the wall, I saw something written in faded red letters. "Don't look down." My body froze. Of course, I looked down. At the bottom of the stairs stood a figure, thin, pale, wearing what looked like an old hospital gown. It wasn't moving, but its head was slightly tilted up, like it was staring right at me. I blinked once, and it was gone. Just like that. My whole body went numb. I bolted up the stairs, stumbled into the hallway, and ran toward the broken window I came through. When I got outside, the air hit me like ice. I didn't look back. I didn't want to. But as I reached my car and shut the door, my rearview mirror caught something that made my hands go cold. In the second floor window, someone was standing there, watching. I swear on everything, it was the same pale figure, still and silent, as if waiting for me to come back. That night, I couldn't sleep. The sound of dragging metal kept replaying in my head. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still hear it, slow scraping, moving closer. 5. Kings Park Psychiatric Center, Kings Park, New York. The first time I saw Kings Park Psychiatric Center, it didn't feel like a place. It felt like a presence. The giant concrete buildings rose against the gray Long Island sky, cold and lifeless, like skeletons of something that used to breathe. The wind moved through the empty windows, making a hollow sound that almost felt like a whisper. I parked near the old power plant and stepped out. The smell of wet grass mixed with rust filled the air. For a long moment, I just stared at the main tower, the infamous Building 93, its broken windows reflecting the dying light of the evening. The ground was soft under my feet as I walked closer, and each step echoed faintly, even outside. The front doors were long gone, replaced by shadows and darkness. Inside, the temperature dropped instantly. The air was thick and heavy, filled with the scent of mold and decay. My flashlight cut through the dark, catching the dust that floated like tiny ghosts in the beam. I could see endless hallways stretching in both directions, lined with doors, half open, like waiting mouths. As I walked deeper inside, I felt that strange sense again, the feeling of not being alone. It wasn't fear, exactly, more like someone's eyes quietly following me. My footsteps were the only sound until, somewhere above me, a door slammed hard. I froze. The sound echoed down the hall, then silence again. I looked up, half expecting to see someone leaning over the railing, but there was nothing, just darkness swallowing the upper floors. I turned a corner and found a narrow hallway that led to the old patient rooms. On one wall, someone had spray painted the words, "The voices never stop." The letters were uneven, like they'd been written in a hurry. I kept walking, and soon I reached a room with an overturned bed and cracked mirrors still hanging from the wall. I stepped closer and aimed my flashlight at the mirror. For a split second, I saw my reflection, then another face behind mine. I spun around so fast that my light hit the far wall, but no one was there. My heart was racing now. I tried to laugh it off, telling myself it was just my imagination, but then I noticed something chilling. The air in the room had gone completely still. No wind, no sound, not even the faint hum of the outside world. Just silence. And then, from behind the door, came a sound, soft, uneven breathing. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. I pulled the door open, and the hallway was empty. But down at the far end, I saw movement, something pale slipping through a doorway. My flashlight flickered, and I could hear footsteps now, slow and deliberate, coming toward me. The echo filled the corridor like someone walking just out of sight. I stepped back, bumping into the bed. My flashlight died completely. The next few seconds were a blur of panic. I turned and ran, feeling the air grow colder around me with every step. Behind me, something heavy hit the floor, once, then again. When I reached the main hall, I finally saw a dim light ahead, the exit. I didn't look back. I ran until I burst outside, gasping, the cold night air burning my lungs. When I reached my car, my hands were trembling so badly that I dropped the keys twice before starting the engine. As the headlights hit the building one last time, I saw something in one of the top windows of Building 93. A silhouette, perfectly still, watching. Later, when I checked the footage on my camera, the last few seconds before I ran showed something that made my skin crawl. The mirror I'd looked into earlier, it had two figures in it. Me, and someone standing right behind me, smiling.